So, good afternoon. I want to speak today about the what's called the spiral path, which is the series of causes and conditions that will lead us all the way from the depths of sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair, from the intensity of dukkha and anguish, all the way to freedom and to the bliss of nibbana. There's several different suttas that either are on the reference list that I sent you or will be added to that list in the next couple of days. The most famous one is what's called the Upanisa Sutta in the Connected Discourses. That sutta is referred to because it gives the mundane samsaric cycle of dukkha, what we've been studying for the past 4 days. And then it makes a turn and makes the statement that dukkha is the proximate cause for the arising of confidence or faith. Faith is the proximate cause for joy. Joy is the proximate cause for piti or rapture, which is the cause for tranquility, which is the cause for samadhi or concentration. And samadhi is the cause for knowing and seeing reality like it really is, which is the cause for disenchantment, the cause for dispassion, the cause for liberation, and the cause for the knowledge of liberation. The bare outline doesn't necessarily give you a sense of how these causes link together and how they're onward leading. But you should consider that these are, that this sequence is something, it's within the nature of things. It's something within our human nature. Something called dhammata is the Pali word dhammata, which means it's natural. To give a simile, just as when the god pours down rain over the mountains, water flows down the mountainside, filling up the branches of the crevices and gullies. Having filled up the crevices and gullies, small lakes and great lakes are filled up. When the lakes are filled up, the small rivers fill up. When the small rivers are filled up, the large rivers are filled. And when the large rivers filled up, they fill up the great ocean. We can see this a lot. I mentioned before that we have a hermitage, which is a section of land near the Pacific. It's quite hilly there. And if we have a wet, rainy season, the hillside gets to be completely saturated. And the underground springs gain force so that what was just coming out as a very small trickle is coming out as a strong, powerful trickle. And the different, if there's a fold in the land and the land gathers up water, it just gathers and gathers, and it flows through all of the trails that we have are in danger of getting eroded, because the water has a tendency to gather in the trail or gather in the road and be flowing down the road. If there's a tire track or something, it fills with water, and then it starts to erode the tire track and make a creek out of the tire track. The trails become muddy. We have a very funny picture of one of the sections. There's one of these long trails. It was once a chute where they were sending the logs down in the old days when they were logging our area. And then it comes down this big chute to a landing. And then where the landing is becomes a great mud pie. And you can stand there and be up to your ankles in mud. It's so saturated and soaked. And then if you try to, because we're trying to maintain our trails, we try how we can divert the water, and the water wants to go that way and we would like it to go over there, but you can't really very easily control water, especially if you don't understand it very well. The water will flow one way or another. It will find its outlet, it will flow, and it will flow down and into our great creek, and our creek becomes so powerful that even there can be a great tangled mass of fallen trees and logs and limbs that's created a natural dam in our creek. And but during the rainy season, even this great tangle of large logs can be transformed and reconverted. Even large boulders can be moved. The creek is so powerful, so that then later, if we go back later on, we see the creek is, our big creek is completely different than what it was before. So this is the power of nature, that nature follows its course. It's just if we can be skillful, we can be like a kind of a water specialist. I guess an irrigator is a water specialist, and he or she knows how to lead the water. So then if we lead the water and give a very small tip to get a little rivulet going this way instead of that way, and then it gathers its own force and becomes a powerful flow going in that direction. This conversion from dukkha to faith is something that some people find confusing. How can suffering cause faith? And I have two suggestions about that. One is that if you experience suffering, you would become a seeker. As I told you when I was speaking on the first day about how the Buddha woke up, I spoke about the noble search. So the Blessed One saw suffering, and he undertook the searching how to find the end of suffering. And many people who are sincere practitioners may go to different systems of thought, different kinds of mental therapy, this program or that program, this religion or that religion, and they may search for some time without finding an answer that works for them. And then after searching for a while, they may come across a bit of our Buddhist Dhamma and hear about the Four Noble Truths. And for some people, it's like, oh, I can recognize this. This is the way that works. I can see, it's so obvious and clear to me. This is a way of practice that can work for me. And so then they're inspired and they go on just by having a chance to hear the Dhamma. I can quote you from the Sangiti Sutta, which is number 33 in the Digha Nikaya. This is a little paragraph out of that whole sutta, which is called 5 Opportunities for Freedom. The first opportunity is the Buddha, our respected spiritual companion, teaches the Dhamma. And upon encountering that Buddha or that teacher, the seeker feels inspired by the meaning and the teaching. This translation about being inspired, it's Patisamvedita, it's related to samvega. So it's as a religious emotion or a spiritual urgency or like a joy or inspiration that's arising from the practical teaching, the atta, which is like what it's good for, like what's it good for in this life? What's the immediate result of practice? And then the Dhamma, which is the truth, the contemplation of the sublime truth. So it's the Dhamma and its practical application is inspiring because of encountering a Buddha or encountering a teacher. The second way to have an opportunity for freedom, you didn't meet a teacher. You didn't even encounter a highly spiritual friend, but you came across the Dhamma. Maybe you Googled it, you found it online. This happened to me. One time, couple of years ago, we were doing alms round, and we happened to be up near the junior college. It wasn't our usual place to go on alms round, but we were there, so we went into the lovely campus, and we were sitting there having, taking the food that had been offered to us, and there was nobody around. And then this young teenager, like a 13-year-old boy, came over and asked if we were monks. And we said yes. And came to find out this boy started to have the feeling that there was no self. And he didn't know what to do. So he Googled it. And at first he read that experiencing no self is a kind of a mental illness. And then he kept on Googling, and he came across how the idea is in Buddhism. And then he started just reading things on the internet about Buddhism. And based on he has no support, his parents know nothing about it. His fellow students or the colleagues at school, he doesn't know anybody who practices meditation. He doesn't know anybody who has any connection with the Dhamma, but just from looking it up, he takes this practice and he starts practicing meditation and learning the Dhamma. So without a teacher or without meeting a Buddha, the mendicant learns and memorizes some Dhamma. And then the second way of liberation, they teach the Dhamma in detail to others. Now, each one of you who's part of this retreat can have an opportunity to be a mentor to somebody else. And you may find that making the effort to explain the Dhamma that you have experienced and that you understand can be a cause for your liberation. Our third possibility is, even if you don't teach the Dhamma, you recite the Dhamma. So just as we do in the morning when we recite our morning puja, we are reciting the Dhamma. And that can be a cause for freedom. Or else a fourth cause could be having learned and memorized some Dhamma. They think about and consider the teaching in their heart. So by this thinking and consideration, that could be your cause for freedom. Or else the last possibility is you come across a meditation subject as the foundation of meditation, and you properly grasp onto, attend to that object, keep it in mind, and understand it with wisdom. And based on that, the inspiration, the Dhamma inspiration, the samvega, the spiritual urgency would arise in you, feeling inspired, joy springs up, being joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, one feels bliss. When one feels blissful, the mind becomes immersed in meditation, and then it goes on through that to insight and freedom. So this is one way to get from dukkha to get on the ladder to start the process of evolution. When I first read that Upanisa Sutta that said it dependent on dukkha is faith, since I have experience in as a recovering alcoholic in that program of recovery, there was something that seemed really obvious to me from the recovery point of view, how this would work. Like when you keep trying to control it through your willpower, you try this trick or that trick, or you try, you'll only drink on weekends, not every day, or you'll only drink in the evening, not in the morning, or you'll only drink with people and not by yourself, or, you try many different tricks and tips and then nothing works. Always that the mind is trying to, fall back into the addiction, so that finally you give up and realize your own helplessness, and then you become willing to listen. So what I'm trying to say is, as a result of dukkha, one can become willing to listen, willing to follow the guidance of somebody else who knows something that you don't notice. In the Four Noble Truths, dukkha should be fully understood, and the cause of dukkha should be abandoned. So that's the way in which dukkha is a precursor to getting onto the spiral path towards liberation. here in the simile of the cloth, I'm going over to, this is Majimunikaya number 7, the simile of the cloth. It says here, a mendicant understands the various corruptions of the mind for what they are and gives them up. So corruptions of the mind is a synonym for dukkha. It's all of the, but the beginning of the path is very much tied in with morality, isn't it? So it's because of unskillful, unwholesome ways of holding on to our experience and responding to our experience that we dig ourselves deeper and deeper into the negative cycle. So covetousness, greed, ill will, anger, hostility, contempt, jealousy, stinginess, deceit, deviousness, obstinacy, aggression, conceit, arrogance, vanity, and negligence. Those are the corruptions of the mind. If you could go through, whether in this life, maybe you'd have to go into several past lives to see how many times you've been guilty of each one of these, and whether you've really been free of any of them. But having understand what dukkha is, and understanding that dukkha has a cause, which is craving, and understanding that it's possible to let go of craving. So if one knows how painful dukkha is, and one knows there's a possibility of giving it up, then they might have some experience with giving up one piece of all of the defilements or all of the afflictions that they're carrying around in their life. Maybe they can't give up all of it, but give up something. And whatever extent they can give up some of their craving, or they can give up some of their afflictive state of mind, and they realize it's like this powerful release of energy. Oh, to this extent, I'm free of that. I was carrying this resentment around since forever, but actually I got sick and tired of resentment, and I realized I can just put it down. I don't need it. It's gone. And having had like that first experience to some degree, some partial degree of the ability to, that dukkha is optional. It can be let go. Then they come to be endowed with confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And thinking of their confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, they would think, I have discarded, eliminated, released, given up, and relinquished my former afflictions to some extent. And to that extent, they find meaning, joy in the meaning and the teaching, and they gain the joy connected with the teaching. So this pamoja, which is the second factor in the spiral path. The first factor was confidence. Second factor is joy, or pamoja. And that's a kind of like, it's a sort of a bridge between the sila, or morality or ethics side of of our path of practice and the meditation side of our practice. I have had other really meaningful experiences sometimes with students who were into seriously, like unethical or criminal or, really destructive patterns, and found a way to step away from those destructive patterns, and then found that process of stepping away as being a tremendous more spiritual boost, a psychological boost, a boost to happiness. And giving up those bad habits is kind of a precursor or a forerunner of then subsequently through meditation and wisdom coming to see how the whole cycle of rebirth is has the danger, the dukkha in it, and then becoming disenchanted with samsara, disenchanted with rebirth, and willing to give up the existence of a self. So when we, start at the beginning and we just in such a simple way, we say, well, I'm not going to be so selfish. And if I become less selfish, this is putting a pattern into my psychology, which is the precursor for subsequently being able to abandon the clinging to the concept of self or clinging to self-conceit. And the sutta I was just reading, I referred to having the perfect confidence in the triple gem, the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. That confidence is, it's not based on being gullible or thinking that you're forced to take on board some catechism that you're not able to test or prove out through your own experiences, but rather it means that at the beginning that you have enough confidence to be able to undertake this path of practice. And that could be because of encountering the Dhamma, and the Dhamma just makes sense to you in a way that other methods didn't make sense. Or it could be because of encountering a teacher or a kalyanamitta, a good friend, someone who has what you want, and you just can see there's something about them, about the way they respond to the world, about the way they hold things, which is very different than what you encountered before. And you test that person, you sort of examine that person, you see whether they're, do they really practice what they preach? Are they the same way when they have a big audience? Are the same way when they don't have a big audience? Are they consistent, and are they virtuous? Are they honest? Are they truthful? And if you can find those things to be true, and you get enough willingness to practice what they're suggesting, then from practicing what they're suggesting, then you got to look to your own experience and see what the result is. And if you gain the immediate wholesome results, then gradually you can become more and more confident, not a blind faith, but an informed faith based on your own experience. From that comes the joy. If you, sometimes it's translated as gladness. If you know how to gladden the mind, it's such a benefit for you, such a boon for you, even if you're not yet able to get very far in meditation. Or if a person is, kind of like at this beginning stage and they've not yet gone very far in experiencing the fruits of this practice, the mind is unstable and the mind is, still on a roller coaster between gladness and depression, or between being, disturbed in one way or another, and then at other times being serene and happy, then because of learning to be mindful, you may notice what's going on when the mind is peaceful, when the mind is at rest, or when the mind is in a good state, when the mind is calm, when the mind is bright, and then what's going on the other occasions when the mind is disturbed. And bit by bit, this can be a progress of years, just learning how to accentuate the circumstances that lead to a joyful, calm, glad, upright state of mind. And so that's that part of this program. Then, based on gaining joy, piti is born, and in Pali it's saying the piti jayati. The piti comes into existence, and now we are coming into the realm of meditation. So sometimes in meditation, none of the hindrances or afflictions are present. One can recognize the freedom, the temporary freedom from affliction, and one can just begin to enjoy. Another translation or another expression sometimes uses called joyful interest. So the mind has a quality of like a brightness. The awareness is very bright. You're able to see and observe very clearly what's going on with the meditation. So it's both this combination of brightness and calmness. And so this is the rapture. Then the body becomes pacified or tranquil. This is the passaddhi arises, and in particular, a lot of the afflictions, like mental afflictions, are manifesting as afflictive emotions that are being expressed in different kinds of agitation or arousal that's happening in the body. This tranquilizing of the body is very beneficial for practice, because although the body is very unstable, the body is more stabilized than the mind. So if you have a shock of something that's very aggravating or very frightening, then the body would create adrenaline. And even if you realize that that's not a snake, it's just a rope. So mentally, you know what it is, but the adrenaline is still coursing through the body. And it may take, 10 minutes or something before the amount of adrenaline in the system sort of goes down to a level that it's no longer causing a disturbance. And similarly, if you are doing the loving kindness meditation or some other kind of joyful, blissful type of meditation, then the other kind of pheromones that are supportive of feeling blissful are being generated in the body, and they last a few minutes. So even if like a mental moment is just, it's a very small fraction of a second, and the mind can jump around, but because of when we're practicing mindfulness of the body, when the body becomes tranquil, and then encountering that tranquil body is something that is a helper for stabilizing the mind. Then when the body is tranquil, then one would feel bliss. Sukham vedeti. So sukha is happiness. Okay, one would feel happiness, or one would feel pleasure. Vedeti, that means to experience something directly. So this is it's like you knowing it for yourself from your own direct experience. And when you come to know this kind of happiness, this is the kind of happiness which is safe. It's not a danger to you. It's not like the bliss of chocolate, which kind of like has some negative side effect. So it's like a happiness that's got, like, its opposite is just like on the other side, so it's not really secure. But the kind of sukha that one can experience in meditation is suggested by the Blessed One to be a safe happiness, and you have a promise, or you can go there again and again, and you won't be harmed by experiencing this meditative happiness. So you can stay in that state of happiness as long as you want. The only thing is that eventually the amount of activation that's involved in blissful meditation gets to be like tiresome, and then you want to go to something that's even more quiet. So the mind which is blissful is the mind that's able to become immersed in samadhi. Samadhi is sometimes translated as tranquil meditation, sometimes as concentration, sometimes Jayarava, one of the readings I gave you, likes to use the word integration. So it's not just that the factors are concentrated, but that all of the mental faculties are integrated and integrated towards the practice of meditation. From there, we have the stages of wisdom, which I'm going to speak about more this afternoon. But I just want you to come back to the simile of the rain falling on the mountains, and remember that we're talking about a natural process, so that if you are able to get out of the way and just allow this process to work its way, these factors will arise by themselves. You don't need to use your willpower or your force or your wishing or longing to make these factors come along for you. Instead, you need to investigate the dukkha of going around and around in samsara, the wheel of suffering, until the mind becomes willing to let it go. And then let that go and see if you would discover the beginning of this confidence in the path, the gladness, the other stages that we're talking about. So I'm going to stop here.